don't think they'll say, I don't think Harry and Meghan will say anything. They haven't mentioned him for quite a long time. I think in one of the interviews, she said something like, I grieve for missing my father, but it's very much up to her, really. If she wanted to see him, she could easily see him. He's left the door open, as has indeed the other grandfather, the king, has left the door open. That's what they do. She's the one who's prevented it. And, it's an interesting conundrum as to why Prince Harry actually never met his father-in-law. Most people meet their potential father-in-law before they marry, and that didn't happen. So the main reason for that is obviously that she stopped it. I mean, otherwise it would have happened. It could have happened very easily. So she stopped it. Her reasons for stopping it are unknown. I have some thoughts on that, but anyway, it didn't happen, which is very, very odd and rather a bad sign, if you don't mind me saying so. It would cost Meghan Markle nothing to introduce her grandchildren to their grandfather. It would obviously mean a lot to him, and I think on the whole, we would rather respect her for doing so. Otherwise, let's be honest. What's going to happen is, I mean, there'll come a point when he will die. There'll be a lot of media speculation as to whether she's going to attend his funeral or whether she's going to say anything. The whole thing is going to be very unpleasant, I would say, and it's just nice if people can reconcile. And we've talked a lot over these last weeks about possibilities of reconciliation, and I've always said it's always possible to reconcile if people are prepared to compromise. Now, there may be some absolutely dreadful reason why she thinks that he shouldn't see his grandchildren, but I can't possibly imagine what it is, except for sort of just general disdain for him. I mean, he's not going to harm his grandchildren. It's just it would just give him so much pleasure. I feel very sorry about this. Everything starts at home. It starts with the family, and she has fallen out with all her family. It seems. I don't know about the mother. We haven't heard from her recently. They were always extremely close, but she was very close to her father when she was growing up, and he was very good to her. He drove her to auditions. He brought her onto the set of Married with Children. He paid for her education. He did masses of things for her. So, you can be very big-hearted, and you can make a little gesture. It's not asking very much. Montecito and Mexico are not terribly far apart. I actually read somewhere they said 250 miles. Somewhere else I read 70 miles. I don't know how far it is, but it's not very far. It would be very easy to do. Whereas, of course, if he does go live in Southeast Asia, there's no question that anyone will ever see him again. Well, I think we have seen it before, actually, because she cut off from her first husband. She cut off from her Canadian chef boyfriend. She cut off from Jessica Mulroney. So you could arguably say she cut off from the entire British royal family. That's what she does. So it's not a great surprise that she's cut off from her father, but it's a great pity. I mean, within the British royal family, there was a very difficult situation with the Duke and Duchess of Windsor years ago, but it was realised that there would come a point when the Duke would die and the Duchess would come over for the funeral. So the Queen invited the Windsors to come to the unveiling of the memorial to Queen Mary in 1967, and they were all seen in public together. And on her state visit to France in 1972, she called in to see the Duke, and he rose from his chair, even though he had tubes attached to him and all sorts of things, which luckily didn't come out of place. And that meant a lot to him. And I think it actually also smoothed the path for what then happened, because he died 10 days later. And when the Duchess of Windsor came over, people were very sympathetic towards her, and there wasn't a sort of huge drama about them being seen together in public. I mean, it was all sort of anesthetized, and that's what you should always do. But she is one rather inclined to dump people, I'm afraid. That seems to be part of it. Once it's in your character to do that, people usually act in character, so it happens time and time again. It's part of the syndrome. It will happen again, yes, I'm sure it will.
And when you say you're sure it will, as in with Prince Harry?
Well, I don't wish that to happen for his sake, but I wouldn't be surprised in the fullness of time. I just would wish him well and hope that he finds peace and happiness somewhere else.